How's it going, everyone? Today I was just going to show you how I whittle these little pine trees on rectangular squarish bases. I really like the pine tree shape. My maker's mark is loosely based on the pine tree shape. So yeah, I just figured it's something I enjoy carving. They're nice, they're simple. I like how the facets usually tend to stay on them. I don't know if you can see, you can kind of see the facets stay on them, so they look very hand carved, and they stand up just fine. So I don't know, I like them. Nice and simple to carve. So first, what you'll need is just a stick like this. I don't usually use like a branch stick. So I guess what I mean by a stick is a piece of wood, because a stick itself might have pith down the middle. So this doesn't have pith. You can see this is actually has growth rings. So this is like the edge of a log. So yeah, and I usually tend to use fresh green wood, something that's still relatively wet. And you can tell that these pieces were also cut from a piece that was a little wider than this one. So this was more rectangular. This is a little bit more square. It doesn't really matter. This one just came out a slightly more rectangular tree, but you can't even tell that much that it's a little wider than this way. Anyway, the goal is simple, so no need to overthink it. Grab yourself a piece of wood that is roughly squarish and follow along. So here's a piece of wood, and what you want to do at first is just make it a little conical, so kind of like a cone, point at the top, getting wider towards the bottom, whatever size tree you want to go for. I usually go for 3 of these branch rings, real simple, and I usually don't make them too big. So you're gonna whittle it down. This is an example of what we're going for. So this is one where I already completed the step, but I'm gonna do it anyway, the step. So I'm gonna see, okay, I see on this one it looks like there's a few cracks already, so I don't think I'll start on that side. This side I don't see any cracks, so I'll start on this side. So let's get to it. Take off some nice big cup. This is if you're outside, you get a little bit more. This, when you're trying to carve under a camera like I am, it can be a little bit more difficult to do these larger, more aggressive cuts, but don't be afraid to do them if you got the space. A lot of these things, not that I've made many videos yet, but a lot of the things that I'll make videos of how to carve or what I carve just take longer just because I'm talking through them and trying to do my best to hold the wood under the camera. So if it seems like I'm doing something the slow way, because I probably am. Alright, so getting near the end here. You got all the time in the world to make the tips, so don't worry about doing any final cuts yet. Just make sure that you've put a new face on all parts of the tree. Alright, so there. So that's basically what we got here. And I don't talk a ton about safety just because that's not what I'm on here to talk about. I'm sure there's other people that have better ways of saying how to do things safer. But I always say when you're carving these tiny things, that's really where the mistakes get made. So, take it easy, take it slow. General rule of thumb is if you're making a cut, always be thinking about, well, what if the knife came flying off the wood? Where would it go? So, for example, to make a cut like this, and be putting a lot of pressure here, I want to be thinking if the knife came off the wood and went straight forward, would it hit anything? If I was holding it like this, no. If I was doing it like this, yes. So just always be thinking about where that knife blade would end up if there is no wood in its path, right? Because we're removing the wood, so if the knife does its job and removes the wood in its path, where is it going to end up? So anyway, that's my little safety tidbit this video. So first thing we'll do is I just work from the top down. I don't have these down to any kind of a science. So definitely this is not like the only way to do it. Feel free to come up with your own way, but I'd say probably small top, and then I'd say don't even, just work your way down the tree. There's no reason to get too crazy in the planning, but make a little stop cut and then move around, stop cut, move around, stop cut, move around. And you could go around, you could just stop cut all the way around if you want to make it one whole step. So what I've done is I made a ring around the whole tree, and I'm just going to go around, and I'm going to be gentle, especially, so I'm using, like I said, green wood, fresh wood, so the wood's a little softer than if it was dry. And if I really want them to look pretty, then what I'll do is I'll actually pretty much carve 95% of it, and then leave it to dry for a few days, and then come back and make final cuts. If I care that much about how pretty it is, but not. These are something I just do with little extra pieces of wood, so I'm not usually caring too much about how well they turn out. So a couple cuts up, slice down, thumb it off, cut in, cut down, cut in, cut down, cut in, cut down. And all the while, you don't need to apply crazy amounts of pressure. This is pretty small and intricate. It's a pretty good practice for this kind of cut, this stop cut. Honestly, if there's a skill, I'd say it's kind of like matching the cut, the stop cut to the upshave cut, like that. That's what this is really good practice for. And remember, you can always come back. So I usually recommend don't even try to put anything in its final form until you've done most of the major working. So alright, I look down under the branches and make sure there's not too much fuzzy stuff hanging out from like bad cuts. It looks pretty clean. I'm using the tip of my knife a lot. And then what I did is I made sure that for the most part, this part is all symmetrical down here, because that's where I'm actually going to make my next cut for the second row of trees. So you can see this one I'm currently working on is already very different than the previous ones I worked on. So it's good if you make one that you really like or something, so a design like this tree, keep it around for a while and try to make some replicas of it before you give it to someone or get rid of it or put it somewhere where you won't see it all the time. So I'm going to actually make this next stop cut a little differently than I did the first one. So the first one I kind of just slowly walked around with this, which was fine because it was the top, but this bottom one's going to be a little longer, so I'm actually going to hold it like this. And I'm just going to actually roll it like this. I'm going to roll it forward, which is totally not normal, but it's going to allow me to make sure the lines line up just like that. Now I see it's lined up all the way around. So once again, do what works for you. I'm not going to talk too much about safety. So if you're doing something and you get hurt or it doesn't feel right, then I would not do it. I would find a better way to do it that works for you. This is just what works for me. Good side note on safety. Well, I'm saying that I'm not talking about it, and I am. Good side note on safety is a sharp knife is a lot safer than a dull knife. Because a dull knife, you're going to find yourself pressing a lot harder, adding a lot more pressure. You're going to have a lot less control because it's going to be fighting you on everything that you're trying to do. Whereas a sharp knife, just cuts. Not a lot of arguing. So. I've seen some other tree designs out there on the YouTube, and some of them are pretty good, but the designs that really attract me, that I gravitate towards, are the ones that look very handmade and that are simple and can be used with as few tools as possible, just because I think that's one of the things that has drawn me to whittling in the first place, or carving, or using a knife to work with wood, is just the simplicity of being able to have one knife, piece of wood, and then having all the options. So a lot of good options out there if this is too simple, not intricate enough for you. If you're looking for more of a challenge, I personally think this is a challenge to do well, because I don't think I even make these very well. I haven't really, like I said, I haven't really gotten these down to a science. I haven't made a whole ton of them, but alright, so that looks like branch number 2, and you can, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but they're a little fuzzy. It's a little fuzzy along the bottoms of the branches, like where the grain or the wood is a little frayed. That's from when making those push cuts down, and the knife probably just pushes up. And that's something that I would leave and come back to once the wood is dry. But if you didn't want to do that, you could go around really gently and this, and they'll probably take care of it. But anyway, that's that. So that's the second branch. So now I'm going to do the third branch. I'm going to cut the line of the third branch a third way, just to show you another option. This is probably the least controlled, and it's rolling it away from yourself, so it makes a little bit more sense mentally. But then you've got to make sure that this lines up with that, which is the trickiest part. So once I'm near the end, I'm just going to go back around and do that. And here we go. Oh, skipped right over the stop cut there. That's not good. This is going to be the one where you also need to start thinking about the base of the tree. And if you look here, the base of the tree is going to have the most of these push down, carve up, push down, carve up, because you want to make a pretty drastic difference between the base and the tree itself. So feel free to be a little bit more aggressive. But it really helps if you have a knife with a thin tip, because it allows you to really get in and up. You can see, you can really get a few layers chopped off at a time. Something that's also helpful, I guess I didn't say this at the beginning, but having a longer piece of wood, so I actually have carved multiple off of the same stick before, if you could envision it like this. Being on one stick, I've done that, so that's another reason I really like this design. Now, since this is the bottom level, I'm going to pay just a little bit more attention here, because this is the end. So I'm going to make sure that this really has some good looks. I wonder if I can zoom in. Oh, look at that, I can zoom in. Oh, I should have done that a while back. Alright, zoom in. There you go. Make sure the bottom is all clean. Another thing I do for the trees is the bottom is where I try to leave some more, some bolder facets along the base. We should go trim that off. Trim that off. Now that I'm at the end, it's worth putting a little bit more time into cuts, because this actually is probably towards when at the beginning I don't do many final cuts, any fine details, just because I figured, you know, you might mess it up and then you spent 10 minutes on the first part. So this is the base where I'm making really bold facets, so nice and flat sides. Probably cut it off right there with a saw on that knot. Looks like a little branch. Bold facet on the corners. Bold facet on the corners. And that is a pretty good Christmas tree, pine tree, whatever you want to call it. And the last step will be just to take a saw and cut that off. I'm not going to try and do that while holding it above the desk, because that would just be crazy. Alright, but that's it. And then, you know, trim up. Like I said, I probably would wait a few days. You know, maybe I wouldn't even do anything at all. Maybe I call it fuzziness, but it's like the frayed grain that ends up along the bottom of this actually kind of adds to the likeness of the actual tree branches. So You know, maybe you don't want to get rid of them, maybe you do. Leave it up to you. How simple you want to keep it, how much time you want to spend on this. I don't make these to sell or anything. I actually usually use them as like a tie-off for stuff that I did sell. So I tie it to the end of a ribbon or a bow or whatever I'm wrapping something up with. Then I'll go back to the top here, because I never finished that one off. And yeah, that's the simple little pine tree. That's it. This was a slightly tinier one than the other ones, so you might even like the look of the rectangular ones, but there it goes. That's it. Alright, if you liked it, like the video, ask any questions in the comments, subscribe. I just share what I know and what I do. Nothing, no superpowers here. But yeah, let me know if you liked it. Thanks for watching.